DevilNeverCry.
In today's video, we'll be talking about Zenless Zone Zero, a urban fantasy action RPG from the acclaimed developers hoyoverse, who've made titles like Genshin Impact and Honkai Star Rail. Those are games I've not really dabbled in all too much, and I didn't really know anything about Zenless Zone Zero, other than the fact that I like the visual flair and aesthetic and vibe of the trailers overall, and so I went into this fairly blind, so to speak. As previously mentioned, it is an urban fantasy action RPG with just a hint of retroness thrown in there for good measure. Saying that doesn't really explain all too much. So, to really dive into what exactly this game is, whether the gameplay is fun at all, we have to start at the beginning. As soon as I hopped into the closed beta test, or the Equalising Test as it's known as, the game gave me a choice of which character I wanted to play as, with the choice being either Wise or Bell, a sibling duo who effectively work together as a proxy. A proxy, in the terms of Zenless Zone Zero, is effectively somebody who tackles jobs and then assembles a team to dish out and do those jobs in areas known as hollows, areas where the ether has effectively built up so wildly that the entire area is distorted and warped, and that anything that effectively stays in that area for too long turns into a complete monster. Looking at the game's overall anime aesthetic, a description like that sounds about right. And so with that, gameplay falls into effectively one of three separate situations. As a proxy, the work that you do isn't necessarily all too legal, and so you need a front. And that's where the video store that you own comes in. Think Blockbuster, except it didn't really go bankrupt and it's a whole lot more stylish. Though you run your proxy operation out of this video store, you're effectively also able to explore the surrounding part of the city. It's here where you're able to do things like meet specific agents, where you're able to build your trust meter or your social link, so to speak, which can provide buffs in combat. You're able to visit different vendors, such as the noodle shop or the arcade if you want to play some minigames. And sometimes you're able to stumble upon different commissions here as well. Then when you want to tackle a commission, it falls down to effectively two choices. You can either take on a story commission, which forwards on the main narrative, or you're able to tackle a whole bunch of side quests effectively, which you purely do mainly because you want the loot that comes at the end of them. When you do decide to tackle a commission, you then have to form a team of agents. These are effectively who you're going to be using in combat, but more on that later. Once you've assembled your team and decided to take on a commission, that's when the game switches to somewhat of a game board, in the form of CRT TVs, if that makes sense. This is where the game attempts to contextualize the fact that as a proxy, you are more so a guide for your team, as opposed to somebody who dives in headfirst into the combat. And so as you move around your game board, there'll be specific locations that you'll need to go to. Sometimes it may be one location, or sometimes it may be several. Along the way, there'll be a myriad of different squares that you can hop onto to find new pieces of loot or gear. There'll be some traps, there'll be places where you'll be able to take damage, and of course, there'll be different enemy encounters as well. It is when you finally land on one of these enemy squares that the game switches to its action RPG elements. This is when you take those agents that you had effectively set up to go on this commission, and you take them headfirst into combat. And the combat, I can surprisingly say, is fast, fluid, frenetic, and most importantly, fun. The game works on a standard light and heavy attack system. There's a dodge button that you can use to pull off things like just dodges for added witch time, allowing you to net some extra damage while things slow down. But the combat really begins to shine specifically with the character switching and the chain link system. At any given point in the game, during combat, you're able to switch between characters freely and seamlessly. If you hit an enemy with a heavy melee attack when they're stunned, you'll then be able to enact the chain link system, provided you've got the manual mode turned on, where you'll be able to seamlessly transition mid-combo, allowing you to keep the pressure up on your enemies. Alongside the chain link system, if an enemy attack is coming your way, you can actually parry the enemy's attack using the character switch system, and to top it all off, each agent has their own special ability which does a lot of damage. I think what works quite well about the combat system specifically is the character switching, which again is quite buttery smooth and seamless, but the fact that each agent that you take into combat all has their own different aesthetic and their own weapons, which all allow them to feel quite different during combat. Sure, the game may not necessarily be reinventing the wheel, but it is greater than the sum of its parts, if that makes sense. The combat encounters themselves I think are paced quite well. They don't end up being too short before you're able to really get your teeth into them, and they don't tend to drag on forever. Depending on what kind of commission you're taking, there'll be different specific objectives in combat as well. So it doesn't end up feeling repetitive where the only thing you're doing is just wiping out all the enemies. So all in all, with these 3 specific types of gameplay, they managed to do a good job of balancing them all each so that they end up meshing quite well together and you're not doing more of one than you are doing of the other. And again, as somebody who is new to this genre of game, I didn't actually end up feeling overwhelmed with a myriad of systems thrown in your face immediately. There is a lot that you can do, for example, to effectively min and max your characters' stats, the stats of their attacks, if you want to. And I'm sure there's plenty of ways that you can grind for materials if that is your choice, but if you are just looking to casually dive into this and experience it, then I can definitely recommend it. Some of the other highlights I have of Zenless Zone Zero are not just the absolutely fantastic animations, which never get boring to look at if I'm honest, the amazing visual flair both in the game's graphics, the cutscene styles, even the UI of the game itself, but also the soundtrack of the game as well, which ends up just heightening the entire experience. Something else that's a plus as well, and something that I wasn't necessarily expecting to see, was fully voiced cutscenes. Whether it's the CG cutscenes, it's the comic book style cutscenes, or even the smaller cutscenes where you typically talk to characters and then you have to pick from a text box to see what your character replies with, even those replies end up being voiced. And I know it seems like such a small thing, especially in this instance, but considering the classic silent protagonist trope, which I think quite honestly is overdone at this point, I'm glad to see that the game is fully voiced. For context, I did play Zenless Zone Zero on PC. Something else that was pretty cool is that I was able to plug in my DualSense controller and the game immediately recognized it. No weird faffing around with the settings or the control scheme to get things to work, it just worked straight out of the box. The PC I have only has a 3060 Ti GPU, but I was able to run the game all on max settings, and the game stayed at a consistent and buttery smooth 60 FPS. So quite honestly, I only really have positive things to say about Zenless Zone Zero. I didn't really know what to expect going in, but I ended up feeling positive about it overall. If you want to know more about Zenless Zone Zero and potentially sign up for any future closed beta tests that they have, I'll leave a link in the description. With that said, however, I am interested in hearing your thoughts on Zenless Zone Zero down in the comments section below. Let me know what you think, and also let me know who your favorite character is. Though if I'm honest, I think Nicole might win it out for a lot of people. With all that said and done, it has been me, DevilNeverCry. I'd like to thank all of you for watching, and as always, I'll see you all next video.